Dr. John Demartini is a globally recognized human behavioral specialist.
I was born with learning disabilities and an arm and leg deformity and a speech impediment. There I met a gentleman who spoke as a guest speaker who inspired me in 1 hour one night. When I first discovered words in a dictionary, I spent 20 hours a day on it. A very small percentage of information that we pick up in our senses goes into the conscious awareness. When I'm doing the Demartini Method, which is a series of questions that make you conscious of what's unconscious, and anybody can triple their reading in just a few hours if they just apply a few of the principles. Yeah. So I said, I want to master life. What does that mean? So I broke life into 7 areas. I started writing out goals for myself. I also want to be financially independent, and I'm 50 times financially independent from my original goal. Every perception, decision, and action you take is value-driven. I have 13 value determinants. The first one is space. Make time and spend time on things that are important to you.
In each episode, we dwell into the realms of wellness, exploring the latest trends, expert advice, and practical tips to help lead you a happy, healthier life. We aim to bring a broader perspective to our American audience on issues that impact your daily life by interviewing guests from the US and around the world. From nutrition and fitness to mental well-being and beyond, we're here to empower you with knowledge and inspiration. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, revamp your diet, or simply trying to find a balance in your lifestyle, you're at the right place. Join us as we embark on a journey towards a better, brighter you. I'm your host, Dr. Amir Khan, and together let's unlock the secrets to living life to its fullest. In a world shaped by borrowed beliefs and expectations, a rare few guide us back to purpose and authenticity. Aligning with our highest values unlocks unmatched clarity, resilience, and fulfillment. True transformation begins within by understanding human behavior, not chasing validation. It's not about chasing success. It's more about congruent with who you truly are. Understanding yourself. And that requires a mindset. Today, we want to explore that mindset. We want to explore how to empower us to live by design and not by default. Welcome to another episode of KhanKlinics. I'm your host, Dr. Amir Khan. And today, we truly have an amazing guest who is multi-talented and has been in the industry for over 50 years. Dr. John Demartini is a globally recognized human behavioral specialist. He's an educator, an internationally published author, and a business consultant as well. He's the founder of the Demartini Institute, which offers over 78 courses, primarily focused on self-development, life mastery, and of course, leadership. He got a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions towards personal development and understanding human behavior. Dr. Demartini earned his bachelor's from Houston in 1978. His studies in chiropractic, he became a licensed chiropractor later on. But then his true breakthrough came in the revolutionary Demartini Method, a scientifically grounded process designed to dissolve emotional blockages, bring clarity to one's life, especially at challenging experiences, and realign individuals with their highest values. His groundbreaking Inspired Destiny program has empowered thousands to live with purpose, live with direction, and authentic fulfillment. He has delivered life-changing talks in over 100 countries and transformed millions of celebrities worldwide. He's the author of several bestseller books, The Breakthrough Experience, The Value Factors Inspired Destiny, and many, many more. Dr. John Demartini, we're very honored to have you on our show, KhanKlinics, today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I was looking forward to it, so thank you for this opportunity.
So there's a lot of places we can start from. But let's start what inspired you to go on this journey and embrace being a chiropractor, an author, educator, speaker, and of course, a human behavioral specialist. What drove your passion and why have you ended up where you are today?
I was born with learning disabilities and an arm and leg deformity and a speech impediment. I was told in first grade that I would never be able to read or write or communicate effectively, probably not go very far or amount to much. I only made it through school with the help of the smartest kids by asking questions. I left school at 13 and left home and lived on the streets. In those days, it was the 60s, and so it was not uncommon to want to go and expand your consciousness through natural means. I became also a surfer, and I hitchhiked to California and down to Mexico and eventually moved when I was 15 to Hawaii. I became a big wave rider, got in some surf movies and surf magazines, and nearly died at 17. In the recovery of that, I was led to a health food store to get proper nutrition and to a yoga class to recover from the problems I was having with my neuromuscular problem. There I met a gentleman who spoke as a guest speaker who inspired me in 1 hour one night to believe that maybe I could overcome my learning problems and someday become intelligent and learn how to read and speak properly. So the night that I met him, I had a very inspiring experience, a vision, you might say, an epiphany that was so profound that has been basically carrying me for 52 years. And that led me to want to study human behavior, healing, philosophy, and to overcome my speech impediment and become a teacher and to learn to read. I didn't read until I was 18, really successfully. But once I learned that I could, with the help of going through and memorizing 30 words a day on the dictionary and gradually growing vocabulary and pronouncing words and working very diligently and very hard for many hours a day, I eventually went from the bottom to, you might say, the top. I took a GED and got me a high school equivalency and started back to school. And eventually I excelled in school. But I wanted to be involved in healing, but I really didn't think that there was a natural excess of organs or deficiency of drugs. I thought that there was a natural ability to heal. So I wanted to know, how do we awaken the natural healer within? How do we work with the psychology? How do we work with the physiology? And the mind body was very intriguing to me since 1970s. So that led me to eventually going on to chiropractic college, graduating, open up a clinic. And in 18 months, I started from a little office with myself. 18 months later, I had 5 doctors and 12 staff members in a 5,000 square foot office. And people wanted to know, how in the heck did you do that? And I was reading everything I could on anything to do with achievement and personal development and business development. And that led me to speaking in many fields on how to expand awareness and potential. And in business, one of them was business and finance. And I have been doing that now all these years. So I started speaking when I was 18. Anybody would listen to me, I was grateful for, but eventually became more formalized. And now I've spoken around 300 times a year at least, sometimes up to 400. And people ask me, why do I do that? I'm independently wealthy. Why do I do that? And I say, because I can, because I was told one time I couldn't. So that's why I do what I do. I love it. I can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing, but researching, writing every day, teaching every day, traveling the world. So I'm coming to you from Casablanca on my ship. I'm sailing. And I've been teaching most of the day, and tomorrow I'll do it, and the next day I'll do it. So I teach almost every day.
And that's really brilliant, really enlightening for our audience to know that teaching is a passion. You could be successful and teach, and you could be an entrepreneur and still have the passion to teach. I want to ask a relevant sort of question to that. You mentioned just about learning. How much time on a daily basis, roughly, do you spend on acquiring more knowledge? Especially since knowledge evolves a lot and there is a lot of things you want to update. Give us an idea. What's your methodology for your personal growth? I know we're going to go into how we can enlighten other people, but what about, first of all, John himself? How does he teach himself and how much time does he spend?
When I first discovered words in a dictionary, I spent 20 hours a day on it. And I don't think I've probably ever gone a day without at least 3 hours, but I'm reading every day. I'm a polymath, so I've read over 31,000 books now, and I read every day. I've probably read about 40 or 50 articles today in the fields of neurology. So anytime I can feed my mind, I feel that that's my responsibility as a teacher, to educate myself and be at the cutting edge as best I can in what I'm my specialty. And so I read every single day. I don't let a day go by without reading. And even if I'm flying, I'll have articles, or I'll have online, or I'll have something I'm reading. So I learned to speed read later, not when I first started, but I gradually developed that. And so I would read a minimum of 4 to 7 books a day, and on weekends, sometimes up to 18 to 20 of them on average. So I was devouring books every single day, trying to catch up with all the other smart kids, because once you learn you can read, you certainly want to. I did. So I've been devouring everything. I set out to try to build a foundation of knowledge on the most universal principles I could get my hands on. So I basically went and took a list of every ology known, and I made a goal to read at least 100 books in every ology known. And so every discipline, I've tried to do that just so I have a broader knowledge, so I can see things laterally. And so I would be classified as a polymath in that respect. But anything that allows me to assist people in maximizing human awareness potential and breaking through constraints that's stopping people from doing what's extraordinary in their life and living authentically, I'm interested in. And that could go into the neurochemistry, it could go into chemistry, go into physics, it could go into psychology, philosophy. I don't care where it leads, theology, anywhere where it might give me a tip, I'm going there. I'm going to devour it.
You mentioned that you speed read and you read a lot, and you're not like a slow reader. You're going through material a lot. Tell us, what technique do you use for yourself when you are speed reading? Is that just audibles? Is that visualization? Or is that literally just reading the book and taking notes? A follow-up question would be, you're reading a lot. Are you keeping your notes there as you're going along? And do you get time to get back to the notes because you're reading so much?
I've had different phases as I learned to speed read. See, a very small percentage of information that we pick up in our senses goes into the conscious awareness. I read an article just the other day. It says 0.004%. I don't know what's real, but that's what the article said. Most of it goes into the unconscious. But I was doing a presentation to a group of dentists. I was speaking for the Dental Association on TMJ, because I also studied dentistry and other fields. And I realized I was asked a question by a person in the audience, and out of the blue, a photographic image of a particular text that I'd read that I was not conscious that I had read. I was conscious I'd read it, but I wasn't conscious of the information. It came to the surface, and I realized that when somebody asks me a question that's pertinent, that's aligned with the value that I have, the pulvinar nucleus and the interlaminar nucleus and the thalamus will filter that up into the conscious awareness for me to have. And so then once I realized that if I limit what I'm reading to the conscious awareness, I'll think, well, I didn't get it. I didn't remember it all. But when I realize I can just speed read and just allow it to go in, and then when I link whatever I'm talking to with something important and high in my values, or to a question somebody proposes, I have access to it. So I realized then that I didn't need to limit myself to the conscious reading. I could go right in with the unconscious also. I also developed my own speed reading program, Dr. Demartini's learning and speed reading dynamic. And it uses visualizing. It uses a fast finger guiding process or a pencil guiding process. It's a number of things that I worked together and developed for myself. And I've taught it for decades now, probably 4.5 decades. And anybody can learn it. Anybody can triple their reading in just a few hours if they just apply a few of the principles. So I'm a firm believer that when something's really high in your values, something deeply meaningful, something that's truly inspiring and something that's fulfilling, your reticular activating system will keep you awake, and you won't want to stop. You'll just keep wanting to engage in reading it. But if it's not, and it's not connected to your values, you'll shut down and you'll fall asleep and not retain it. So you can access it. If you link whatever you're reading to whatever you value most, you can increase accessibility. You will absorb it, you'll assimilate it, you'll apply it, you'll retain it, you'll use it. I also learned that the faster I give that information out, the more I retain it. So I used to get up early in the morning and speed read a bunch of books. And then in the evening, I used to present whatever I read that morning. If I presented that information right away that day while it was fresh, I retained the information and developed more autographic, photographic memory. And so the episodic memories and other forms of memories that our hippocampus and other regions have are easily accessible if we link things to what we value most and have a purpose behind it. So that's why I believe that identifying what's really truly most important and highest in priority in a person's life, which is the telos the ontological identity and purpose in life, we maximize our learning capacities, we maximize our efficiency at work, we maximize our objectivity and neutrality and sustainable fair exchange state. We're maximizing our potential when we do that. So reading and learning was just a small piece of the significance of devouring it. And I wanted to find principles that would stand the test of time that were found in all theologies. So whether I study any discipline, in chemistry, mathematics, physics, doesn't matter. I'm looking for what's common to them. So if I see a principle that's common to all of them, I have a higher probability of building a foundation of knowledge that's really grounded and that I can see. And it may have slightly different language in different fields, but the overall principle is still there. That's what I'm interested in. What is the most universal principles, general laws that we can build a foundation of knowledge on, epistemology, so we can then share that with people so they have an advantage in life. So it's not just misinformation and a fluffy, trend in knowledge, but it's something that will be classic and stand the test of time.
Dr. Demartini, you're reading philosophy, you're reading human behavior, but then you're saying you're reading chemistry, you're reading physics, very dry, you're going on to read mathematics, which is completely tangible. How are you accumulating all of these different knowledges and then applying them and modifying your Demartini method? How is that working out? And do you get help from your team? Do you work alone, or is there a part of the team that's help you assemble and be a better entrepreneur?
Every time I meet somebody who's exceptionally known in their field, Freeman Dyson, who I interacted with at Institute of Advanced Studies at Princeton in astrophysics and biology, Leakey in anthropology while he was around, I asked them to, anytime that they find something that's cutting edge, please send it to me. So I had, on average, around at least 19 or more references coming in on a daily basis from various leaders, just so I can have a fresh insight coming in. But in my own case, I don't see them as separate. I don't see any of these disciplines separate. Like when I'm doing the Demartini Method, which is a series of questions that make you conscious of what's unconscious, so you can be fully conscious, and allow you to balance the equation of perception and balance the excitatory and inhibitory, glutamate and GABA transmitters in the brain. When I'm actually going in there and asking questions, I'm looking for a mathematical equation. There's a great article just today talking about how important EI ratios, excitatory inhibitory ratios, are in the brain for maximizing learning and potential. So I've been aware of that since at least, decades ago. And I knew that the brain, whenever it perceives something in memory, it would create an anti-memory to counterbalance it, to keep the EI ratios balanced, based on associations that are stored in the hippocampus, the so-called subconscious mind. And so I learned to ask questions to help people balance the equation of their perception. And that's what mathematics is. It's about balanced equations. So I studied the calculus and analytic geometry, and I've studied quantum physics, and I've devoured probably 1,400 books in the field of quantum physics, and I've lectured in that field. And mathematics, I can't say I'm a great mathematician, but I've got familiarized myself with enough math to be able to create a practical application of it in the human behavior field. So I'm using every one of these disciplines, because when you take a memory and an anti-memory, if you look in Neuron magazine, the 17th March, I think 2016, there's a fantastic article in Neuron magazine about the memory and anti-memory and the EI ratio balance there. And if they're completely balanced, then you have an entanglement in the brain between conscious and unconscious information, which Jung mentioned in his work in the field of psychology. And him and Wolfgang Pauli, they were trying to find a way of integrating that and reaching a causal state, a synchronicity state. So I've been interested in how do I do that from a neurochemistry and neuroperceptions, how receptors work, how the nerve tracts conduct information, how they associate, the types of synapses that are involved in that. I've been devouring I lectured on neurology when I was in my 20s, and I've been very fascinated by that. I wrote a big textbook last year on neurology for that objective. I write on all these fields. Every one of these fields I've studied, I write about. So I write big books on each of these for my own knowledge, just for my own my own knowledge so I can familiarize myself in case I can get another angle that'll help me help other people.
That's really fascinating. You talk, you discuss how you wanna, you have diversed yourself in different fields and not just stayed focused in one area. So if it led off for you to study quantum physics, you really have gone in and dipped into it and gone studied it and come back and applied it back to your
Right. There's still a common thread. How do we
common thread.
maximize human awareness and potential? I set out when I was 18 years old. I was watching a show called Kung Fu with David
Kung Fu.
Carradine. You probably remember that.
Uh-huh.
And in there, he talked about his Shaolin master. And so I thought, wow, I want to be a master.
Yeah.
So I said, I want to master life. What does that mean? So I broke life into 7 areas: our intellectual pursuits, our business pursuits, our financial pursuits, our family and relationship pursuits, our social pursuits, our physical health and well-being, and our whatever inspires us, our spiritual path. I then said, all right, what I want to accomplish. So I started writing out goals for myself, and what I want to accomplish. And I said, I want to create original ideas that serve humanity intellectually. I want to be a polymath. I want to be a man of letters. I want to be able to study every field I can and try to find the most universal principles to build a foundation on to teach that around the world. And I wanted to go to every country around the world. I've spoken in 161 countries now. And then I said, I also want to have a global business. I want students from every part of the world. 2016, we accomplished that. We have students from every country. I've spoken in Iran and Kazakhstan and you name it. I've been there and I've got students there. I also want to be financially independent, and I'm 50 times financially independent from my original goal. I want to have a global family. I live on a ship called the World. That's the name of the ship I live on, that I part own. And so I travel the world, and that's home. I always say the universe is my playground. The world is my home. Every country is a room in the house. I want to have a global influence. So I've met amazing people, from celebrated people to leaders to spiritual leaders to business leaders to education leaders. I've met amazing people. And that was the long-term goal. All these were written out when I was 18, and some were evolved over time since. I want to have a vital body. Now, today I might have a little sniffles, but I am more vital than most people half my age and still put in good 20 hours a day, 16 to 18 to 20 hours a day. And I do that every day. And I want to be inspired. I want to create a movement that would inspire people. Not a new religion. There's plenty of religions. It was just a movement. And that's what the Demartini Method was, and the value applications, to try to give people the ability to really practically, really scientifically live an inspired life by living by priority and delegating lower priority things and dedicating to what's really meaningful, not subordinating to anybody, not living in the shadows of anybody, but standing on the shoulders of great giants and acknowledging that whatever we see in others is a reflection of who we are, and it's our projection, so we can honor our magnificence. So I've been interested in that. And so all those areas are doable. And as far as I'm concerned, mastery of human behavior is the cornerstone, maximizing human awareness potential in that. Every discipline I study is for that objective. So I'm studying ancillary information, but I'm focused on one thing. How do I maximize the human experience on planet Earth?
Fascinating. One of the things, Dr. Demartini, was pretty evident. You speak very passionately with what you do. And even if someone comes across you, someone like me who's just met you, we can sense the passion that's flowing through right now, a purpose, a direction, and how we value just general human values. So those being one of the guiding principles, they're important for everyone. How would you tell a person who just is entering into this field and you want to say, hey, we want to maximize your potential, human potential, where would one start from?
The first thing I would do, your life demonstrates what you value. Every perception, decision, and action you take is value driven. My highest value is teaching. So my life demonstrates it. My second highest value is researching and writing. My life demonstrates it. A third is travel. My life demonstrates it. So your life demonstrates your values. So many years ago, 46 plus years ago, I asked myself a question at age 23. That's 47 years now. What is it? Why do some people walk their talk? Some people limp their life. Why do some people do what they say and others don't? I want to know why. And I found out, and it led me to the study by Hartman on axiology, which is a study of value and worth. And I realized that the human values that we have, not the ones that we ought to, as David Hume describes. David Hume said that there's is and there's ought. What we ought to be doing versus what we are doing. I'm not interested in what we ought to be doing. I'm not interested in conformity and fitting in tradition, convention, and mores of people on the outside. I'm interested in the calling from within. As Ernest Becker in his Denial of Death describes, I'm interested in finding the individual hero within. And that comes from identifying what you truly value most. And I worked and developed a method. It's on my website. It's free. It's private. Anybody can go there, drdemartini.com, and they can take 30 minutes of their time and go through 13 very profound questions to make you look at what is your life demonstrating is most important. Because if you ask people, how many want to be financially independent? They'll all put their hands up. And you ask how many of you are, they'll all put their hands down. So what they say they want and what they're actually living are two different things. So I'm interested in finding out what's truly an intrinsic value, not extrinsic, not injected values, not derivative values from outer sources, but what exactly is it that they spontaneously do? In the medial prefrontal cortex of the forebrain, there are spontaneous action potentials that occur that are not evoked from sensory stimuli. These go off spontaneously the moment you're authentic and you are inspired to act. Nobody has to motivate you to do it. A kid that has a high value on video games doesn't need to be motivated to do the games. He may need to be motivated extrinsically to do this homework, his chores, and clean his room. So anytime you're doing something that's inspired, that's intrinsic, you're going to go farther in life, achieve more, and have more fulfillment than you're trying to do something extrinsic. So living by duty is extrinsic. You said that in the beginning. And living by design is intrinsic. So identifying what the values are is the first step, in my opinion, to help you maximize human awareness potential. And then start to structure your life accordingly by dedicating to what's highest in priority, the actions that fulfill it, and by delegating things that are lower. Because anytime you do things that are low on your values, you devalue yourself and you end up creating chaos and entropy and disorder. And you create your blood glucose and oxygen goes into the amygdala, which is basically a survival response from avoiding pain and seeking pleasure. And I always say that your addictive, compulsive, and immediate gratifying addictive behaviors are compensations for unfulfilled highest values. So that's the first starting point. And that's why if they go on the website, it's free, it's private, and it's a magnificent starting point for people to get clear about what it is their life demonstrates important. Not what they wish it would be, not what they think it ought to be or should be, not what they wish it would be and hope it will be. What does their life demonstrate? The is, not the ought. Identifying that liberates people from the bondage of all the confusion and self-doubt and all the distractions that we get from trying to live by outer derivative values, things that we think we're supposed to. And many people are trapped by mothers and fathers and preachers and teachers and conventions and traditions and mores about how they should be. And it's a moral hypocrisy trying to do it. And it's about liberating themselves so they can be an unborrowed visionary and do something and make a difference. You can't make a difference fitting in. You make a difference standing out. And the people that left their mark in the history is that. Margaret Mead, the anthropologist, said it really nicely. Never underestimate a small group of people for making a difference in the world. It's the only thing they ever did. One individual with a clear mission, like Elon Musk, for instance, who wants to go to Mars, gathering together a team of magnificent experts in their field, doing something that other people have not been able to do before, and yet living at the edge. That's the way to live a more fulfilled life, to go after doing something, finding a problem in humanity that needs a solution that matches what you feel you can't wait to get up in the morning and solve, and targeting that and finding that and getting after something that's deeply meaningful and going and mastering the pursuit of that. And you'll build incremental momentum that'll be unstoppable if you do that.
As you go along. So thank you, first of all, for answering that, because I'm going to summarize. The starting point is, first of all, accepting where you are. It's like looking yourself in the mirror and you're seeing what you have done in the past. You know where your values were and how you were driven towards your goals. It could be anything. It could be whether your professional pursuits.
Yes.
It could be your a lot of times it is professional pursuits. You are driven there, and then once you get there, you don't know what you want to do. But then you're asking the question: what else do you want to do? Do you want to liberate yourself from what you are doing as a daily routine and rut, or do you want to do something big? Try to solve a problem. Come as a a chapter in humanity and how you're going to solve that, or are you just going to do what you're doing? So I think you've given us the starting point. You've given us how you want to liberate, and you've also said, okay, go and review yourself and look at the Demartini first questions and ask yourself where you are. My follow up question would be regarding, if that is the situation and you've identified yourself as someone who has not lived his life purposefully, who didn't know, who was going with what he was told to do, just like you explained, where does he start now? How would he look at the life that is ahead of him? Yes, he's reviewed his previous life. Yes, he wants to be now authentic. Yes, he wants to liberate himself. He's realized that. And he's going to try to solve an issue. But how does he take that first, the little steps now to evaluate, change himself, and make him a better human? I.e., you mentioned the potential of knowing yourself deeper inside.
Well, whenever you're injecting the values of an outer authority, which Freud called the superego, you have clues. You hear in your language, I ought to do this, I should do this, I'm supposed to do this, I need to do this, I must do this, I got to do this, I have to do this. And you use imperative language internal to yourself. And whenever you do that, it isn't you. You're now trying to force yourself to be something you're not by the language. When you're doing something that's intrinsic, it's something you love doing. I love it. This is what I love doing. This is what inspires me. This is what I can't imagine not doing. This is what I love. Now, the reason why people have an internal conflict on that is because they constantly are called to live by their highest value, and they are, but they're not honoring it because they think it should be something else. And that's where the conflict comes in. They're subordinated to mothers or fathers or preachers or teachers. But if I look at what your life demonstrates, it reveals what's really important, because nobody can sustain living in other people's values without breaking down. Entropy takes over if you try. It's like if you're married. I don't know if you're married or single, but if you're married, if you ever tried to get your wife to live in your values, it'll be futile. You're not going to do it. You might get a few things that might be modified, and she might try to get a few things out of you, but you're going to live in your values. She's going to live in hers. Now, if you try to live in somebody else's values and you think you should, you're going to be judging yourself and beating yourself up and thinking, well, I should be doing this, but I keep doing this. What you keep doing is what your life's demonstrated. So unconsciously, you have a higher value on that, but you aren't able to honor it and look at it honestly. That's why I'd ask people to go to the value determination process and take a look at what it is, because it's eye-opening. Because many people say, I really want to be financially independent, but no matter what they do, they keep buying consumables that depreciate in value and they never get ahead. Or they end up not really being dedicated to growing and serving people to generate more income. And they're not really focused on directly or indirectly managing companies and using efficiency and effectiveness to maximize profits. So what they say they want and what their life demonstrates, I'm not interested in what they say. I'm interested in what their life demonstrates, because that's where the values are. But people compare themselves to others. The comparison, the law of contrast, as Wilhelm once said, is probably the most undermining principle that we face. Because as long as we put people on pedestals and minimize ourselves in turn and inject their values, we're going to have derivative values that are going to cause us this internal conflict and unclarity and cloud the clarity of our own mission and our own purpose. Our purpose and mission is always an expression of our highest value. Our ontological identity is an expression of our highest value. Our epistemological area of expertise, an area where we're going to excel, is in our highest value. And when we live by our highest value, the blood glucose oxygen goes into the forebrain, which Scientific American and September-October edition of 2022 says is the seat of the self. It's the self-governing center. It governs the vicissitudes and volatilities and valencies of the amygdala. And so identifying what that highest priority is absolutely the most significant things. And then giving yourself permission to live by it. And knowing you're going to be ridiculed, violently opposed, until you become self-evident as a self-actualized person, living truly a way that makes a difference. But most people are afraid. They're because of the way human beings were raised over the thousands of years. If we went into exile, when we started having more and more social structure and more division of labor, people depended on other people. So the generalist was gone, and now the specialist emerged. So we depend on all these other people for our lives. And so the fear of rejection from people trap us in trying to fit into what other people project. But nobody's getting up in the morning and dedicating their life to your fulfillment. There's no genie out there. If you're not dedicated to what's really most important, don't even know what it is, you're going to have a quiet life of desperation, not a life of inspiration. And Maslow was trying to say this in Personality and Motivation, to give ourselves permission to be a self-actualized individual where we actualize our potential. And our potential is waiting to be actualized. All it is a prioritization. If we're not prioritizing our actions, not prioritizing our energy, not prioritizing our food and prioritizing our money expenditures and how we organize our space, we're missing out on the magnificence of what life has to offer us. It's about prioritization. A priori, as the philosophers used to call it.
So you mentioned amygdala with emotion triggers. You mentioned hippocampus a little bit with memory triggers. You've wrote about value. You've discussed a little bit of values, what are higher values or not, whether we recognize them, whether they're the same for you and me, maybe different.
They're unique. There's no two people. I've been doing value determinations for, like I say, 46, 7 years. There are no two people with the same set of values. Not one. They're snowflake specific, fingerprint specific. I've done 250,000 value determinations on people, and there's no two the same. They may start out looking like it. They may say business, but when you actually go into it, when I think of business, I think of teaching, researching, writing, and traveling. The rest of it I delegate to other specialists. So business is a broad general term, but what actually is the action that you excel at? And narrowing that down is very specific to that individual based on the voids that they've had throughout their journey.
That's very fascinating too. So I understand the point where you're coming as if I'm going to mention higher values, standard values, they're all going to be different. Whether it is, let's say it is purpose, let's say it's gratitude, let's say we say perceptions or balanced values or whatever our values.
Those are ideals, Dr. Amir. Those are ideals. Those aren't values. People confuse those. I've been doing value determination. No one's ever had gratitude at the top. What they have, they have a specific perception and action and decisions that they want to do. And if they live congruently on that, they emerge gratitude. Gratitude is the byproduct, not the objective of the value.
Interesting. So what are the sets that you use then? Just give us an overview. I know there's a lot one can go into it, and we're already running over time. But I'm just so engaged with the conversation. I would love to have these last few bits put in.
Okay.
Please.
How do you determine values? Well, the first determinant, I have 13 value determinants. The first one is space. There's a thing called proxemics. And proxemics measures things that are close or distant to you, proximal or distal. Proxemics comes from the word proximal, which is an anatomical term for something close, and distal. So your hands are distal, your shoulder is proximal. Correct. So anything that you keep in your intimate and personal or individual space, which is anywhere from 1.5 to 0 to up to about 4 feet within reach, is important to you. Anything that somebody gives you that has zero value to, you toss it and get it away from you. So the first value determinant is how do you fill your space? And I look at where you spend most of your time, and I look at the space there, and I look at what are the items that you keep in your space that you engage in with your sensory and motor functions most consistently. This gives you an indication of what's important. Now, the majority of people in the world that I've done this on, computer is up at the top. More people have a computer in front of them more hours of the day than most any item, believe it or not. But they have a different motive. Some is for business, some for writing, some for connecting with people. But that computer is the most powerful tool. That's why there's billionaires that have created computers.
More so than now phones. I would have
Phones
thought.
Are second most. Phones are second most. Now becoming almost first most because of the smartphone. But that's only in the last 5 to 10 years. Phones are second most. And so you look at what is the dominant use of the phone. Now, in my case, I look up research on my phone. I don't call people. I don't talk to people that much. I don't have emails on here. I just research on my phone and on my computer. I'm teaching and researching. So the first one is space. The second indication is time. You find time, make time, and spend time on things that are important to you. You run out of time and don't have time for things that aren't. So what is it your day is actually consisting of? I have people that say, well, I got to go to work. No, you don't got to go to work. You're going there because it's unconsciously giving you financial security. There's a motive for it. We need to find out why you're there in that many hours a day. Because you may not have come up with an entrepreneurial, more efficient way of getting the money. So you're using that tool to get what you want financially. So we look at time. The third one is energy. When you're doing something high in your value, your energy goes up, your mitochondria are activated. And if you're doing something that's low in your values, your mitochondria are shut down. They're literally, your energy levels go up when you're doing something high in your values. That's why you can read a book, and if it's engaging, you don't want to go to bed. But if you're reading a book and it's not engaging, you can't even stay awake. Your reticular activating system and your thalamus, the pulvinar nucleus, filtering things out and doing that to make sure you're prioritizing things that are really important to your life. It's not a symptom, it's a guide. The fourth one is money. You find money, make money, spend money, get money for things that are important to you, but you run out of money and don't want to spend money on things that aren't. So I look at how you spend your money. The hierarchy of your values dictates your financial destiny. So people that really do have a value in wealth building will put their money into assets that give them passive income. People that have a value in travel will put their money into travel. People into food, they'll put it all in food. Put in their kids, they'll put it in their kids. Their financial destiny is a byproduct of the hierarchy of their values. So I'm looking for the patterns in space, time, energy, and money. I'm looking for the patterns of repeated answers because there's a pattern every time, if they're honest. Then I look at where they're most ordered and organized, because whatever is high in your value, you bring order and organization. You're ordered and organized when you put this podcast together. It's organized. You know what you're going to do. You know who you're going to do. You know something about the person. You know what, you've got an outline. You got questions. You're organized because it's important to you. But things that aren't important to you, which your wife may have high value on, you'll let her take care of. You know, when you're married, you delegate things that are important to them that are not important to you and let them make those decisions. And you make decisions unimportant to you, but not important to them. So what's interesting is you look at what is really where you're most ordered and organized. Well, knowledge is ordered in my mind. I've got thousands and thousands, I've got 600,000 pages of writings. So I've got thousands and thousands of pages of writings that's organized. I know where to go. I know where it's on my computer. I know exactly how to access it. I've got it in my brain. So where are you most ordered and organized? That tells you what you value. And there'll be a repetition. There'll be a pattern that keeps showing. The next one is where you're most disciplined, reliable, and focused. Where do you spontaneously act where nobody has to remind you to act? Where are you in theory Y, not theory X, as McGregor said in 1960? Where are you spontaneously engaged? Now, I'm in teaching, I will do it. When people who know me, they'll go, John, where are you teaching today? They don't ask, are you teaching? They'll say, where are you teaching? What are you teaching? Because they know that's what I'm going to be doing. So you're disciplined, reliable, and focused on that. So that's number 6. Number 7, 8, 9 is what are you thinking about? What are you visualizing? And what are you internally dialoguing with yourself about how you would love your life to be that shows evidence of coming true? If there's no evidence, it's not it. If it's not what you'd love to come true, it's not it. But I'm looking at the forebrain and the parietal cortex, right? The frontal and the parietal for the thinking. I'm looking at visual and the occipital. I'm looking for internal dialogue over on the temporal lobes. I'm looking for a congruency and a gestalt in the brain to look for the same pattern. The next one is what do you want to keep bringing conversations to? When you're in dialogue with somebody, when people start talking to you, some will turn you off and go, look, I don't have time for this. But if they talk about something that's engaging, you're engaged and you'll talk all night about it. So what do you keep bringing the conversation to? What is it you want to engage in conversation with people? People come up to you and say, how's your kids? Or how's your business? Or how's your investments? Or how's your physical health? Or how's your golf game? You would pay close attention to what they want to bring the conversation to, and that's what they value. This is helpful for salespeople also. The next one is what is it that inspires them and brings tears of inspiration? What brings a gamma synchronicity, a eureka aha moment in the brain? Because when you're most authentic, you get an autonomic balance and the EI ratios come to balance and get a synchronicity, a gamma synchronicity. And almost everybody around the world, no matter what country you've been in, knows when they have tear of inspiration, they know to follow it and use it as a guide in their life. Because it is a guide. It's a confirmation of authenticity. So you look at that, and that's when you're most congruent. And it's a sign whatever you're doing is on track with what it is you're inspired by. Then I look at what are the 3 top goals that you have that's most persistent, consistent you've been acting on that you don't ever stop on, that come true. And the last one is what do you spontaneously want to feed your mind, learn about, read about, study, and watch on YouTube? What's the topics? And if you look and you take 13 questions, 3 answers to each question, you get 39 answers in all, and you look at what is the most frequent, second most frequent, third most frequent answers that keep repeating, you'll get a greater idea of what the life demonstrates is valuable to instead of all the superficial idealisms, because people will say peace and harmony and gratitude. And they'll say all these ideals, but that's not what their life demonstrates. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what their life is actually demonstrating day to day in their sensory motor functions. Now we got a value then. Then we can start structuring our life accordingly, or we can change it. I have a whole system on how to shift values, have a whole system on how to live congruently with values. You have the option, either go do what you love by delegating, or love what you do by linking and making new associations and stacking new associations and operant conditioning their values to go in a different direction. So either way, I can show people how to do it. But if you don't have congruence between what you say is important and what's really important and what your actions are, there's no fulfillment in life. You have an internal conflict constantly.
Totally get that. You've spelled it out. You got to start by being first honest. I think that's critical. The dialogue has to be open. And when you was just talking about those things, I was actually thinking, hey, what did I do along this pathway? What do I think is important? Where do I value the things that are relevant? Not a lot of people are able to grasp those. Just like you're saying, when you go on and you turn on your TV, you're going to see YouTube turn on. It's already tried to figure out what you want to see. Of the thousands and millions of things, it's going to put those things on the algorithm based on what you've been clicking on. So if your spirituality, you're looking for that, you're going to find that. If you were looking for teaching, we were looking for Dr. Demartini, it was going to find you, whether you're in the middle of a ship or in the Pacific or wherever you are. It's going to find what you're doing. Very fascinating. It's just very, very fascinating how humans' behavior are being analyzed and how you see it from a different lens. I want to ask a couple of quick questions. Tell us, our audience is always intrigued about, hey, AI and how it's going to influence. I cannot think of even a modifying better tool than AI now emerging into all of your Demartini methodology and coming up with, hey, because in the past it was we had to acquire that knowledge, but now we have that knowledge in our phone. Like you were saying, you go on to OpenAI and you have that knowledge, provided you are asking that question to it, depending on what. So how do you see now, what is the stuff, how do you see that evolving, changing, A, your methodologies, how you're going to teach in the future, and B, the impact of this teaching, your teaching, analyzing stuff on humans in general?
Well, right now, AI is a byproduct of the collective information that's inside that we have access to on the internet. And so there's a vast amount of subjectively biased misinformation all the way down to some objective facts and truths. So there have to be algorithms within algorithms to sift out to get really meaningful information, particularly when it comes to healthcare. You can't gamble on just opinions. You got to have something that you rely on that's a standard. So AI is as good as the algorithms and how it's put together and what information they're basing on. I had a lady contact me from Brisbane, Australia, and said, I looked on AI to see what you would say about this topic. And she sent it to me. And I edited it, and 40% of it was edited. I said, that's not what I would say. That's what AI says I would say. So right now, I'm not satisfied with AI's proficiency, but I see the inevitability that it's going to keep refining, kind of like a dialectic. It'll eventually get to a synthesis in a more integrated state, just like the brain does when we go from the amygdala through the cingulate cortex into the medial prefrontal cortex. It eventually sifts out and integrates information and allows the drama of the amygdala's valencies to become more neutral and objective. And that information in AI will be a duplication of the brain's function over time. So it's inevitable. And yeah, now the only thing is, if you're going to have an information like me, I've got an information base. If I just go on AI and give it to them, the people that own AI own it. So you make sure if you got intellectual property, that you sign the contracts that information is still yours. Otherwise, it's gone.
I hate to say this, but I am gonna. It's then already gone. Even if you analyze, and if it's out there and it's a book format or it's in your publications, or even if you spoke about it on YouTube and it's recorded, that property is already on. So AI is going to shape a lot of things.
There is the person that owns the AI is going to own all that. So be careful if you are an information-based provider that you do the contracts with AI proficiently for yourself.
I see that. I do want you to give your final message to our audience, and what values you the most that you want to give out. We're going to see that right now. It's in your message. If there is a message that you want to give out, what is the core message that you want to give out? I'm intrigued to hear that.
Well, I'm not interested in imposing my values on anyone. I want them to. I'm not a motivational speaker with rhetorical persuasion. I'm interested in
No.
you waking up your own intrinsic values and living true to yourself. So I'm not otherwise I'm defeating the very objective I'm trying to accomplish. But I do believe that the magnificence of who you are, your really authentic self, when you're living congruently according to what you're spontaneously acting on that's inspiring to you, when you do, you maximize your awareness potential. You don't sit there and compare yourself to other people. You compare your daily actions to how congruent are your actions to what you value most. That's what you want to focus on. That's what Phelps did when he got 28 gold medals. He didn't go and look at the guy on the left and right before he jumped in the water. He looked straight ahead at his goal and compared his actions to what he's trained at. And if we go through and compare ourselves to others and put people on pedestals or pits, we're going to minimize ourselves or exaggerate ourselves instead of be ourselves. And when we do, we create symptoms and signs in our physiology, psychology, and sociology to let us know we've been inauthentic, to try to guide us back to authentic. So give yourself permission to be you. Why be second at being somebody else when you can be first at being you?
It's very fascinating. Thank you very much, Dr. Demartini, for your valuable time. I really enjoyed this conversation. And thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts, your views, obviously wisdom, and clarifying some of these concepts for us.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, and we did go over a bit, but I'm grateful. So thank you. I got to share more of what I wanted to share. So thank you.
Pleasure is ours. Your work obviously inspires us, and I'm sure we will be looking forward, and a lot of people will be looking up your material online and wherever they can find it. I want to thank my listeners. If this episode sparked something within you, share it, like it, and do subscribe. And I want you to leave comments on this video too. Until next time, stay empowered and keep leading a life by design, not by default. Thank you and have a good evening.